Here's another one. Now, this is actually a multi-day funding deal, and he bought it as a short sale, closed on it, and then a number of days later resold it to a C buyer. And we'll talk a little bit later about what are the circumstances that would require you to use a one-day funding versus multi-day funding. So he walked away. It's a pretty nice little paycheck, $16,455. That's better than a kick in the head. So now, if you look at these numbers on these HUDs and you see, oh, $185,000, that's a lot bigger than I'm doing. But look at this deal. This is a very low-end house, and you'll see this in a lot of cities, in various communities in their cities. And this one's under 20 grand, and the investor still walks away with over $3,000 in his pocket, and he did not put any cash out of his own at closing. That includes all of the closing costs. All of those fees, any of the fees that you would incur to close the house, including the price to pay off the first mortgage or second or however they may be, as well as any closing costs. If you have to pay taxes or whatever it may be. Sometimes there's transfer taxes depending on what city or state you're in. So all of those costs that you would have for that closing are all covered with transactional funding, and you don't have to come up with any of that because it all gets paid out of the second deal. So now here's another one. Now this example is not typical at all. It's like you see those weight loss ads where the people are all skinny and say, oh, geez, and they say always in fine print, results not typical. But it sure is something to shoot for. Now this investor walked away with a stunning $346,000 in his pocket. And imagine making nearly $250,000 without putting up any money of your own. So, this is definitely doable, folks. It can definitely happen. I don't see this kind of a deal every day, trust me, but this can definitely happen. So let's talk about when do you use funding for one day? One-day funding. When would you use that as opposed to multi-day funding? And when you use funding for one day is when, for example, here's one of the ways you would do it is if you have a short sale and there is not a seasoning issue. What's a seasoning issue if you don't know? A seasoning issue is when it could be a couple of things. It could be where there's a clause in the short sale approval letter that says you are not allowed to resell this property within a certain number of days. That's called seasoning, where they say, it has to be held for a certain number of days before it can be resold. You'll frequently see that you can't transfer title for 30 days. That's a real common one. We're seeing that with Bank of America and with Wells Fargo. And on Bank of America, it's known as the dreaded item number 10 on the short sale approval letter. And if you have this kind of a short sale, you cannot use funding for one day, because you're not going to be able to close the B2C deal with the same title company on the same day because of the clause. That clause will prevent you from moving forward and being able to use a one-day funding. But if you have a short sale without the seasoning issue like that, you can use funding for one day. But another example of seasoning interfering with funding for one day is that the end buyer may have a loan whose requirements state that they will not give them the loan if the property is transfer title within a certain day. So your C buyer, your end buyer, has a loan to buy the property, and their lender says, oh no, we're not going to give you this loan if this transfer of title has happened X number of days. So this can be found on conventional as well as FHA loans, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, if neither of these situations apply with your short sale, you're usually good to go ahead with the one-day back-to-back closing. Another way to use funding for one day is with REOs that have compliant title companies. And first of all, what REO means is that it stands for real estate owned by the bank. And it's basically a house that's been foreclosed on. It's bank owned. And any house that's been foreclosed on has had title work, title search done on it by the title company, by the bank. The bank has ordered that as part of their due diligence. And this will be the same title company that will be closing the deal when that house sells. So if you're buying the REO, they've already established the title company that's going to be involved. And many times you'll find that the title company may not be compliant, meaning that they will not allow you to do a back-to-back closing. And if they say it's one of the things you'll need to find out right at the start is if that title company will not allow you to do back-to-back closing, then you cannot use the one-day funding in that kind of a situation. You'll find this also with auctions, the same kind of a situation, because the title work has been done and the title company that is participating in the auction company says, nope, we're not going to let you do a flip, basically. The other kind of deal where you can use funding for one day is when your C buyer are paying all cash. And to, paraphrase the recently disgraced ex-governor of Illinois, having a C buyer who will be paying all cash is just golden. I mean, it's the best thing that you want. You always want to pursue and try to find a C buyer that has all cash to close, and also get that verified by getting your own proof of funds for them. So, because the reason for that is there's no contingencies, there's no problems with there being a loan that's not going to come through, or the lender's going to have issues at the last minute. So you'll find this a lot in wholesaling situations. If you're buying get a short sale, you buy it for say 80, it's worth 120, and you're selling it for 90. And then so the guy's making, the investor is going to pay cash, he's going to get it for 90, he's still going to make 30 grand on it when he sells it for 130 or 120, but he's a cash buyer. So that's what you really want to try to shoot for, is as much as possible is market to C buyers that are paying all cash.